Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Dave TV for the 14th of August, 2013. With lots of things about this Washington Post over the last week or two about the sale to Jeff Bezos and all that stuff. And we're getting, all these analysts, dozens and dozens and dozens of analysts about the internet and about, how when they need to put up paywalls or not put up paywalls, or and how advertising is going to other sort places, and it's kind of all dancing around the subject. Maybe the reason this paper's going down is just simply because it just isn't a very good paper anymore. I look at this today and I see the style, the horrible. This is just an inanely horrible, awful style section. Anyhow, I see this here. Paul Farhi there, freshly back from vacation. Yeah, it's a story about a couple of razor ads, and how they're making people upset. Blah blah blah. Last week we had the big news that Bezos, Amazon.com founder, was buying the Post, and all that stuff. And there must have been in the Post alone 30 or 40 different analysis pieces and whatever about it. In the Post alone. Yet, a week or two before that it was even bigger news in many respects, at least financially, that Sinclair, a company out of Baltimore, was buying the WJLA. The WJLA deal, was like $1 billion for 8 stations, and JLA was the crown jewel, probably like $800 million alone for JLA, where the Post got sold for $250. And it just shows you. I don't analyze everything the Post does. I'm not sitting here analyzing their business coverage and their Egyptian coverage and all that stuff. I just don't have the time and I am not a foundation to do that. But I do analyze their media coverage. And I have to say, where I'm looking at the paper, how they cover the media, it's extraordinarily inept, and getting worse by the minute. The fact that Lisa DeMarais isn't there. I'm not a huge fan of Lisa DeMarais, their longtime TV columnist, because I think she spent an awful lot of time looking at other things than stuff in the Washington market. But at least it was something. There'd be an article about Breaking Bad's ratings or something like that was kind of relevant. There isn't even that anymore. That's gone. Lisa DeMarais is gone. But Farhi, it just seems like a lot of his stuff is silly stuff. It's kind of like there's a meeting, and Paul Farhi, what do you want? What are you going to cover this time, Paul? I don't know. Well, there's a funny razor ad I saw on TV last. Oh yeah, okay, I'll write up something about that. The JLA thing, the JLA deal, Sinclair. Here's a company who's further to the right than Fox News, based in Maryland. So it's pretty much a local company, a local-based company buying WJLA, a local-based station and a locally owned station, one of the last locally owned TV stations in the market. And, it comes down the pike, the news, and the Post just does this little, to the point, little, business dealings kind of article, no investigation. Where is Sinclair getting all this money? They're getting billions and billions and billions of dollars in debt. They're buying not only JLA and Allbritton's 8 stations, but they're buying stations for Fisher Communications and all over. They're buying stations all over the country. They're doing hanky-panky, hinky-binky with the FCC rules. I'm not saying they're breaking the rules, but they're certainly taking advantage of weaknesses in the FCC's rules. They're becoming one of the largest station owners in the country, and they're a local company. They're based in Hunt Valley, Maryland, and yet the Washington Post and Farhi just don't care to even take a look at this. Where are they getting their money? What's their political things? There's been a whole lot of stuff over the years about Sinclair and their news ethics, and how they do they'll do news reports that on the night before an election that kind of lean one way or the other. There was a whole thing years ago with John Kerry, that the Swift Boat documentary, and how the head of Sinclair's news department here in Washington, John Lieberman, resigned over that. And there's a whole bag going on with Sinclair. And it just seems like, why doesn't the Post cover that? They're buying one of the most major media outlets in the Washington market, WJLA, which is worth 3 times the Washington Post. And the Post does nothing. This is typical. See, now I'm just looking at the media business, okay? I'm looking at the media business and I'm saying, their coverage has just fallen down flat. And then the coverage of the Bezos thing was almost bizarrely perverted. It just seemed like, there were so many articles about, Jeff Bezos, and they would pepper them with a little bit of criticism, but they were all just utterly flattering pieces. There is something seriously wrong with this newspaper. And one of them is the fact that it just plain ain't as good as it used to be. Seriously, folks. Sometimes you're looking around, we're looking for all the different reasons of why something's happening. What could it be? The internet, the moon in the sky, maybe the gravity is changing, and then it's affecting their news decisions differently, and there's cable news and all. We're looking at all this stuff and maybe it's just obvious. This paper just is not as good as it used to be. I think so. At least when I'm looking at the media business, no Howard Kurtz, who used to cover a lot of media stuff. No more Lisa DeMarais. Paul Farhi. Again, I have mixed feelings about Paul. I think he's a good writer. When he does cover something, I think he usually does a pretty good job if he checks his facts, like call letters. Doesn't get the call letters wrong. But I don't get it. I don't understand why they didn't do at least a few investigative pieces on Sinclair and the purchase of JLA. It was right there. It's in their backyard. It's a local story, and they just didn't bother to cover it. Now, part of the reason may be the fact, and I really do believe this about the Post, is they just don't want to cover television in the local market because it's competition. WRC and WJLA and TTG and WUSA, and News Channel 8, and they're and WTOP, the radio stations, they're competition. They see them as rivals, okay, and they don't want to cover them. But it's like the Washington Times. Whenever something happens with the Washington Times ownership, they write it all up. It's the Mooney guy dies, and and they write it all up. So they're not afraid of covering that. But I guess they don't really see the Washington Times as serious competition. It isn't really. Whereas JLA does take advertising dollars from the Post for sure. But it's just interesting to see how they just completely and totally dropped the ball on this media story. Massive, whoa. Holy Calolia. I don't know. Got some media numbers, radio trend numbers yesterday. TOP right back at the top of the heap. Hey, what do you know? TOP is first place, and WNEW is tied for 23rd. So there we go. That's a year and a half after WNEW started. Just still no traction. What are you going to say? More good news for Hot 99.5. Interesting to see some consolidation going on there. Hot 95 and Z104 in Baltimore, they're both owned by Clear Channel, and it's interesting to see how they now have Kane doing the morning show on both stations, and now they're going to have the same program director on both stations. The guy who's been program director, Mick Lee, up in Baltimore, is heading out to Chicago, and they're having the guy here in Washington take over the state. It's just interesting to see how they're doing the cross promotion. Now, isn't it? They also have Jack FM up in Baltimore, the classic hit station, Clear Channel does, and they also have DC 101, the alternative rocker down here. Don't they have the same program director doing both those? I think they do. So it's interesting to see how they're merging those two clusters, which is interesting considering CBS keeps them totally separate, which may not be a good idea. CBS might want to think, we could start merging some of our two operations. I don't know. What's WMAL doing these days, huh? WMAL. I'm looking at the 2554 numbers. RQX. Let's see how RQX is doing. In the 2554 money demo, they're pretty much held steady through July, and 15th place. The morning show is trending upward just a teeny tiny bit. They were 21st place in mid-July. Now they're 19th place. So you know what? I don't know if they're going to go as high as Jack Diamond did. Jack Diamond was 10th or 8th place or something like that. I don't know. MAL, 18th place in the money demo, full days, 14th place in the mornings. That's up a tiny bit from their 17th place about a month ago. Middays, 19th. Afternoons, 18th. Nights, 17th. Weekends, 23rd. I tell you, my advice to WMAL, and I've said this before, is they ought to stop doing so much propaganda. It really is a heavily righty propaganda show in the morning. You know, Brian, and Larry. It's like, you know, Grumpy Gramps and the Breitbart Goon. That's what the show sounds like. It isn't very funny. It sounds kind of strained. It doesn't have the charm that Fred Grandy brought to the show. It's not just a conservative show. It's a propagandistic show, and it's annoying and irritating and race-based, and I don't know why advertisers would even touch the show. I don't know. It just seems like but it really needs, they need a whole new morning show. I would just, you know, jettison what they got, bring in somebody else, you know. Bring in a talking dog and a clown that can juggle. Play some polkas. Go back to the old Hardin and Weaver days. Just have a fun morning show, you know, and screw the propaganda, man. I don't think Cumulus is capable of doing that. Cumulus is small market radio in large markets. They literally, I think that's the way they run. Mix 107.3 and MAL sound like small market format stations. They sound like they'd be great in a place like Lynchburg or Altoona. You know, they just don't know how to do a big market station that caters to the diversity of a big market. They don't know how to do that. And you can do conservative talk radio in a big market like that. It's been done. And BAL did it with Ron Smith and all that. You can do that. But you can do it in a classy way that's intelligent, and Cumulus and MAL just are clueless. Continue to remain clueless. All right, folks, that's my Dave TV for today, the 14th of August, 2013. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to help support the website. Send us a few bucks. Again, we are an independent site. We don't have Jeff Bezos coming to buy us, or Sinclair for that matter. Just click on the little support link at the top of DCR TV. Thanks for watching Dave TV. Bazinga!